Okay, first things first, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director promises Part 3 is on schedule, and he feels no negativity toward a project that he spent nearly 10 years to working on. Now, how can I say this in a way that it makes sense? I have grown up playing Final Fantasy to some extent. One of my first RPGs I've ever played was Final Fantasy VII, the demo on PS1. I like 8, I played 10. Yeah, I'm old enough where a lot of these games mean something to me, and I've played them consistently as they have come out throughout the years, and I have my own opinions and tier lists for each one of them. Right. For a very long time, there were rumors about 7 getting remade, and then we got teased, and then it was a tech demo, and then nothing happened, and then we get a remake, and then it was released. Oh, well, it was announced that it's gonna be episodic, and then we were scared because episodic at that time meant The Walking Dead episodic. It was 5 episodes a month or whatever, or 5 episodes a year, once every 2 months. Turns out they ended up cutting into part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 1 does really well, and it's insane. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII. I'm a huge fan of the 7 remakes. I've played every single Final Fantasy VII related video game outside of, what was the mobile game one? So Before Crisis. Yeah, Before Crisis was part of the FOMA mobile service in 2004. It had to be in Japanese. It was a mobile game. So no, I didn't play Before Crisis. Anyways, I want people to know and understand that I have a bias. I have a bias toward Final Fantasy VII for sure. So I want to know what he has to say. I'm expecting this game to do numbers because it's going to come out on all 3 platforms. At least that's what they said that they've been working on. When are we getting Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3? That's the question on every fan's mind as they wait for Square Enix to officially reveal a first look of the trilogy's closer. Director Naoki Hamaguchi didn't tip his hands as when to the announcement will happen, but he did provide some good news about the project's progress and his reflection on a decade spent bringing it to life. I'm unable to share concrete details at this time. What I can say is that development itself is proceeding on time and on schedule. We believe it will be a title that can deliver with confidence as the culmination of the trilogy. We know that many fans are eagerly awaiting, and preparations toward the announcement are steadily underway. Please look forward to it a little longer. I mean, I'm gonna expect we're getting a trailer at Summer Games Fest, or maybe even the Game Awards at the latest, honestly. See, even here, they said, I'm still hoping for a trailer review around the Summer Games Fest, followed by release day in early 2027. But that is the most hopeful. And then the Game Awards seems like the least hopeful. Like, that's probably the last opportunity we're going to get for a trailer for it. Let's just skim through this, because it's not... Is this more? Okay, there is more to the story. I thought he was just... that was all that Kotaku decided to report. This series isn't about rehashing the same gameplay just because it's a remake. I consider this project where we pushed ourselves to ask how much further can we expand the experience with each new entry. For the 3rd installment, we're not thinking about how simply wrapping everything we've built up until this point. Rather, we're focused on how the full scale of the series we've been aiming for could ultimately be realized as a complete experience. I am reading this, and what I'm taking it as, they really wanted to feel that not only were the time and the development and the money that was spent making this trilogy was worth it for both the audience, Square Enix, and for the story itself, but to pay respect for the entity that is Final Fantasy VII altogether. Because when you beat 7 for the first time, like the original, you feel great, but you know, a certain character is dead. Unless you go and you try to get everybody's best weapons, there's some story parts that are, or I should say, some characters are left off. for example, like Yuffie and Vincent are like optional in the original, and then to get Vincent's like ultimate weapon, you have to do this whole thing, and then you find Lucrezia frozen in ice by the waterfall, which kind of tells you more about the story that he has to deal with Sephiroth himself. So, you know, it's a PlayStation 1 game. It wasn't meant to be like, sometimes they're not meant to be full complete stories, or they are, you just have to work toward it. And the popularity of the game gave it its sequels, its prequels, its spin-offs, the movie, this and that. And over the years, especially in the 2000s, this type of shit was not only just normal, but was just you wouldn't, that's what they got, that's what you got. This is the slop that they gave you. You kind of just took it and you're just like, okay, but I could still enjoy it. And I kind of wish they made a remake. That was like the sense, like that's the feeling that people got. It's the feeling a lot of people I knew got, of like, I would like a remake for Final Fantasy 7, but I always heard the same shit. Good graphics, same exact gameplay. But now knowing how remake, we're 2 parts into a 3-part series in, I don't think if you had the old gameplay it would have worked well. So then taking these chances on how do we scale it in a way, how do we make it so that the audience can really come from all sides, people who want a new gameplay experience and then also want the old gameplay experience on top of the story we're trying to tell, and also this side mobile slash Steam game that somehow has a lot of lore stuck behind it. How do we make it so there's like a full conclusion? We want to end it properly. I feel like that's reasonable to be like, hey, we're just trying to focus on that the most, honestly. What else? I'm also struck by the fact that even after dedicating over a decade of my career to this project, I feel no negativity about that time at all. I simply feel a renewed sense of gratitude toward Final Fantasy 7 for giving me an opportunity to work on something truly worthy of this level and time and commitment. It matters to them too. To these developers, especially the people in charge of this game, it matters to them too, because for a lot of the guys, I believe for a lot of the guys who are working on this game, they are from the original. They are the people who worked on the original one. So they know all the trials and tribulations. They know like what story they were trying to say or what they were trying to get at, or how now with 20, 30 years later, they can feel like, okay, well, you know, we're more inspired by more modern things to kind of tell out a better flesh. So think about it like this. You write a really good book, right? Or I should say, you write a really good story by chance, let's say, when you're 18. Now, your whole 20 years later, and you're 38, and you're like, I went to college, you know, I stepped around, I got to travel a lot. You know, I saw people close to me get sick. I saw this, I saw that. You know, I might be married, I might have kids now. My worldview has changed. I've grown. How can I relay that experience back into the same story that I told when I was 18? And how can I make it more impactful? Because now I know what I was trying to say back then, where I was just lost in the weeds. So it's important for them too. The sense of gratitude extends to the original 97 PS1 game story, which Hamaguchi has tweaked but not dramatically rewritten. I place my trust in what Kazushige Nojima writes and have no intention of altering that based on my judgment. See, they even trust each other. This is great. I feel like this is great news altogether. That process whoa, okay, can I use words now? That process requires revisiting scenes again and again, and honestly, it was one of the aspects of development we were most sensitive about. I wonder what they mean by that. Well, maybe if I read most of this paragraph, Like it says, most of the places where Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth deviate from the original were a response to wanting things to remain plausible despite the increased fidelity, or trying to lay the proper emotional groundworks for more of the fleshed out versions of these characters. So now in the reading, like a normal person, I think them revisiting Sephiroth, when you revisit what he did in Nibelheim in the original game, it gives a different context, obviously because of the twist. But how many times do we go back to Nibelheim, like as an audience, media wise? Like we saw it everywhere. We saw the Nibelheim incident from the original game. We saw it retold in Having Children to some extent, like at least the clips of it. Crisis Core, we saw the Nibelheim incident play out. And you know, in various media, how often do we keep seeing this? So I can imagine that for them trying to write it or trying to process like the rest and the conclusion of the story, they got to see the Nibelheim incident like 40 times, or they got to see the death scene like a million times to see what makes the most sense. I was curious about what Nojima said. Well, sorry. I was curious what Nojima himself might think that, and I found an old interview he gave for the Final Fantasy 20th Anniversary Ultimania book. Back then, he suggested he would be busy with rewrites. Quote, "I was definitely younger back then," he said at the time. "Looking at the dialogue, I'm not confident that I managed to convey everything to the player, so I keep wanting to go back and add a lot more text, shamefully enough. The game is filled with a ton of enthusiasm and had a lot of silly parts too." It's exactly what I just said. They want to go back and revisit, not rewrite, but just flesh out the things that you can only really get that kind of hindsight with age, with time, with letting things breathe. They finished the original game. Now they're back at it years and years later, and then now they've been working on this remake trilogy for 10 years. Of course, they're like, okay, well, we made this decision, we made that decision. How can we make Cloud different? How can we make Cloud the same guy but different? How can we make him more complex? How can we make his relationship with Tifa not just straight up I love you too? How do we make Yuffie less annoying but annoying in the way that we felt when we played it the first time, but just more modern? Or what is considered cool? Is being nonchalant cool by having Vincent be this way? We don't know. So let's try to figure this out, spend some time. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So again, Summer Games Fest, we have on this show and on my stream, we have a plan for Summer Games Fest. A friend of mine is going. I also have, Dom has a friend of his that might be joining us to talk about his predictions on Summer Games Fest, probably like the week or so before. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when we get closer to that date, and maybe hopefully we get a trailer.